Set 8 is getting a ton of new item changes, and the one component that gets affected the most has to be Sparring Gloves. I believe that Sparring Gloves will be the most contested component by far, and it will dictate the item build for your carries. But before we get into the meat of it, we do have to go over a few core changes that Riot made regarding itemization. First of all, items that build out of Sparring Gloves no longer have any dodge. Thief Gloves will now give you 40% crit, Infinity Edge and Jeweled Gauntlet will give you 35%, and the remaining will give you 20%. Second, every physical ability in the game does not work with the base critical strike chance anymore, and instead it requires spell crit from something like Jeweled Gauntlet. Third, Riot is giving Infinity Edge a huge rework. It will no longer grant you 100% critical strike chance or convert bonus chance into damage. As a compensation, the item will now grant spell crit as well, which will be super important due to the change for physical spells. Now all of these changes are massive, and they will have a huge effect on both of your openers and late game carry builds. The difference between Infinity Edge and Jeweled Gauntlet is now tiny, the only difference being 25% AD versus 25% AP. This means you can open up with either and potentially end up with a Jeweled Gauntlet on a Samira or an Infinity Edge on an Aurelian Soul without completely screwing up your game. But if you aim for a crit build, it is now much more difficult to achieve 100% critical strike chance since Infinity Edge got reworked, and combining it with Jeweled Gauntlet isn't really a good item build anymore. This means that you're looking to fill up the 2 other item slots with any item that builds out of Sparring Gloves to increase your crit chance. Something you will see a lot on backliners like Samira or Aphelios will be an Infinity Edge together with Hand of Justice and QSS. This way you get an additional 40% critical strike chance, some sustain, attack speed, and CC immunity, providing your carry with everything he wants. AP builds on the other hand have it a bit more difficult, and they will likely be combining Jeweled Gauntlet with Hand of Justice, but finishing their build with Shojin, Rabadon, or even a second Hand of Justice. Running a second Jeweled Gauntlet will also become a much more viable option if you're looking to maximize your damage, or if you have built-in sustain, for example when you're playing Zoraka carry. If you take a look at everything, it becomes clear that any player who wants to prioritize a critical strike build will likely need a total of 3 Sparring Gloves to ensure he can maximize his critical strike chance, making this component extremely contested from the very beginning. If this is the build that will end up dominating the meta due to its strength and great flexibility, then there is a good chance that Bramble Vest might become one of the most important defensive items as well. But, time will tell in the end. This should give you a good idea on which items to prioritize in the early game, and if you end up finding some success with a specific item build, let me know in the comments. I hope you learned something, and see you next time.